shall begin then. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhibhyascha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we're looking at the Bhagavad Gita, our little study group here, and it's chapter 4, entitled as Transcendental Knowledge. And we have actually covered a few verses of this chapter already. I take it that everybody's okay with the methodology that we're using. We're just going through each verse. People get a chance to recite the verse, individually. We'll take turns like we have been, and then we'll just do a mini purport on each verse. Pretty much that's the way we've been doing it. And I think that's coming out to be successful. Okay, so we looked at, we can get on the board verse, let's look at 7 and 8. I'm just going to review them quickly. 7 and 8 are critical verses. They are recited again and again, mostly in Sanskrit, revealing to us, the students of Bhagavad Gita, the purpose of Krishna's descent to this world. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharat, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. Next verse.
Gopal, come here.
Okay. And it starts off with Paritranaya Sadhanam. So to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to reestablish the principles of religion, I myself appear millennium after millennium. Jai, we will go to the next verse, and we just want to say we're staying on with the theme, which is Krishna's purpose. Why is he here? What's he doing for us? What's his contribution to the world? And so on. So you have, in two nutshells, the two verses that we just went over and previous verses. We'll look at text 9, and I'll read this one also. And then after that, we'll get everyone to have a chance to look. Okay, so Janma Karma Chiname Divyam in the Sanskrit. Most likely, the English word divine comes from this Sanskrit root, divyam. What is divyam? What is divine? Krishna's activities, his karma, and also his janma. First word is janma, means his birth, and karma means his activities, or what we say usually pastimes. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Okay. So one of Krishna's purposes in coming here is to establish his divinity, to let everyone know, what kind of a person he is. He's not just mundane, nor is his physical form like a mundane image. It is of a transcendental nature. So we simply have to appreciate his purpose, that Krishna's birth and activities are not mundane, but are divine. And they are, and that many people have succeeded. The next verse will go to people who appreciate this, are addressed in verse 10. Can somebody read that for us?
Yeah, you want the Sanskrit also?
No, it's okay. I will highlight Sanskrit when I need to sometime.
Being free from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me, Many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they attained all transcendental love for me.
So the point that we want to make here is that those persons who appreciate Krishna's divinity, whether it's his birth or his disappearance or anything in between, they also become divine. And what is really nice about this verse is that it gives us hope. Many, that always sounds pretty good. Baha, many persons have become purified by knowledge of me. Because sometimes we may come upon a verse that sounds a little discouraging. Manushanam sahasrishu. If anybody wants to look that up again, Manushanam. So, kaschid yatati siddhaye, yatatam api siddhanam, kaschid mam veti tatvataha. So in that particular verse, somebody can maybe look it up. I just don't have it. I have it on the tip of my tongue. Manushanam. Sahasra means 1,000. So out of 1,000 people, one may take to the spiritual path. Or let's say out of 1,000 people, some people will get a little philosophical and become introspective. And out of 1,000 of those lumped together, only one may know me in truth. So that particular verse I just quoted may sound a little bit hopeless for us. Wow, the chances of becoming a pure devotee are so slim. Why should I even try? But then here you have this shloka, which in some ways may contradict and give us some kind of hope by that word, bahava. That means a good chunk of people have become purified. And that means, purification means become free from this vita, raga, bhaya, krodha. That is attachment, fear, and anger. So it is possible to succeed in spiritual life. And Prabhupada's guru, Bhaktisiddhanta, said that, particularly of Dhruva Maharaj, the 5-year-old boy who went into the wilderness, he said that this boy was so determined that he made incredible leaps and bounds spiritually. So also we can, with our determination, be successful spiritually. So I would say we should not become ever discouraged. There are many people who have made the grade. And so this verse that we just passed through is one of them. Okay. We'll go to text number 11. Can someone else read that one? Number 11, 411.
As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pritha.
Good. Here's another word of encouragement. That, like, say, for instance, if you are not exactly on the strict path of bhakti, then there is still hope for you. You're still on Krishna's path. Later on, we read about devotional service. Krishna indicates, just think of me and everything will be fine. If you can't do that, then follow the rules and regulations of Bhakti Yoga. If you can't do that, then work in such a way that you can offer the fruits of your labor to me. If you can't do that, it keeps going on with concessions that Krishna offers. So apparently, you know, even if you follow, to be honest with you, even if you're on the path of Ravana or Kamsa or one of these characters, where you're inimical towards the Lord, you're still on Krishna's path. Because even adharmic activities or negative actions. It's really, we're all basically submissive to Krishna's world. And even if we channel our energies in the wrong direction, it's still his direction. Every direction is Krishna's direction. So this is certainly one way to understand this verse, that everyone's ultimately surrendering to Krishna. It just takes some people a little bit longer than others. Some people take the high road, some people take the low road. I remember when I was walking across America and I was talking to Anutama, our ISKCON communications guy. We were on the phone. He said, okay, so you're walking in America. That means you're on a super highway, or you're on one of those secondary roads, or you're just on a back road. He said there's 3 different types of roads. So in one sense, there's an old saying that all roads lead to Rome, okay? So even if you go, you take the long course around, not the direct route. You're going to get to Krishna eventually. So that's another verse that instills in us some kind of hope. Krishna says, I reward everyone accordingly. But if you are on the swift path of bhakti, then you're just going to reach there more quickly, and you're better off. So he rewards everyone according to, like the way you drive. If you drive on the highway and with incredible speed, you will be slowed down. You'll be ticketed. You'll get demerit points. If you go too slow, the same thing could happen. But if you actually follow the rules and regulations and observe the signs, then nobody's going to come to you and say, you're a good driver, but at least you'll be safe. That's always the problem with being good. Nobody praises you for being good. I remember one pujari in Vancouver. He said once after coming off the altar doing an arti, that maybe it's just a pujari thing, but he was saying, well, Maharaj, if you sell a lot of books, everyone will give you a lot of praises. If you lead a nice kirtan, everyone will recognize you. They'll tell how good you are. Or if you're in the kitchen and your pizza, which was offered to Krishna, was so great, everyone will let you know. But nobody ever comes and says, that was a great arti you did, Prabhu. But let me know that Krishna is always pleased. Okay, I do think it's a very nice sloka to learn. This chapter 4 is loaded with great verses to memorize. And this is one of them, I would say. It starts with Yayata Amang Prapatate, right? So a nice one. I can still hear it from a godbrother, Kamsahanta, in the temple room. He was reciting this verse very faithfully and, getting it down. And hopefully he's retained it after all these years. Okay. So we'll go to verse number 12. And someone else can read that one.
Okay, yeah.
Men in this world desire success in fruitive activities, and therefore they worship the demigods. Quickly, of course, men get results from fruitive work in this world.
Good, okay. Whenever we see something like the word men and there's no women included, we are including women. We're just talking about people in this world. So this is in reference to the worship of the gods. That would be the Shakespearean terminology. In ISKCON, we oftentimes say the demigods, and that's referring to fruitive results. That takes the shape of being in a heavenly planet, perhaps, living long, being beautiful, looking great, not showing many signs of aging. It can also take the shape of while we're in this world, you may be blessed with material benedictions. So the word there that's used quickly, quick results come by worshiping the demigods. But usually things that come quick are also cheap, right? They're cheap thrills. I remember Janis Joplin, one of her albums was called Cheap Thrills. I got Aishwarya, he knows it. Cheap thrills. So that which is easy to come by cannot be as valued as something that comes of its own accord in time and has a longer lasting effect, and which we benefit from in the end. If we can remember this, that that which in the beginning is like nectar usually ends up being poison, and that which in the beginning is like poison oftentimes ends up as nectar. So when we say poison, we're saying performing some austerities, fasting, rising early, taking a cool shower. I think that's really about it. We don't have too many other austerities. I think I've listed it. It doesn't go beyond that. Tapasya. Tapasya means I'm going to resist. I'm going to control my senses in order to have a long-term benefit, not short-term. Many people like to take the shortcuts and not to go the long way around. They have these, I'm sitting in Toronto, I'm looking out the window and I can see one of the largest, tallest buildings in the world called the CN Tower. I think it's second to one that they have in Dubai. And they have races to go up to the top. I don't know how many flights of stairs, but they have races and to get up there, and one guy ends up being the champ. So the people may say, "Oh, let's take the elevator. Why should we go up the stairs? It's just so strenuous." And sometimes the bhakti tradition is compared to being the staircase. Well, if you can do it and get ultimate benefits, go for it. But some people say, take the stairs, it's better for your health. So it just depends on your perspective on things. But ultimately, we want to achieve love of God. If that's what we get in the end, fine. And the benefits that we receive from the worship of demigods is not very long lasting. There's many shlokas, verses in the Bhagavad Gita that will underscore that concept that what comes temporary is just that, temporary. And what we really want is something that's hard, fast, it's going to last. Hard and fast, and it's going to last. Hey, I just made a poem there. Okay, so we'll hear more about demigod worship. So a key word there is quickly you get results from demigods. But easy come, easy go. Easy come, easy go. That means whatever is kind of nice. I think it's a mode of ignorance song. I think it's like a blues song. Easy come, easy go. Nothing ever worries me. Okay. So the lazy path. Okay. So just remember, when it comes to serving Krishna, it's also easy, and there's also some tough moments that we have to go through. One of the greatest austerities is getting along with each other. It's being nice to each other. Like a lot of times the chemistry doesn't work, and you have to like that person. This is called marriage. You have to like that person. So You know, that commitment, I was thinking about it earlier, that commitment, that's a real austerity because it's very easy to walk away from somebody, you love, there's romance, and then the romance wears off. And then it's so easy to find somebody else. There's always somebody there looking for a new prospect while you're looking at the same time. And when two heads come together, oh, bing, the birds fly, you know, stars are moving in the air. Cupids come around. Sorry. Somebody says full screen. Is there a problem there?
No. You're not talking about us, Brian, are you?
No, I'm not talking about anybody specific. No. There are such things as lifetime lovebirds. We're not getting personal here. Okay. So a word there is quickly. Just keep that in mind. You're dealing with demigods. Okay. Quick results. And maybe, okay. Is that, I just double clicked it. I don't know if I helped there. Somebody's having a problem with my screen. I guess I don't know what to do.
No, it's not you, Maharaj. They need to do something in their screen. We
Okay.
can. You're-
Okay, from somebody such a. Okay, so let us go now to verse 13. Can I get a new person to read this one? How about Arjuna? Are you still there? Can we hear from your lotus voice? Are you there, Arjuna?
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Sorry, I was just on muting. Sorry. According to the three modes of material nature and the work associated with them, the four divisions of human society are created by me. And although I am the creator of the system, you should know that I am yet the non-doer, being unchangeable.
Okay, beautiful. So there's a lot being said there. Krishna claims to have created the four social and spiritual orders, which we are quite familiar with in ISKCON, and we are not quite sure if we have implemented them. But those of us who have had the pleasure of spending some time in the ashram, either as a brahmachari or a brahmacharini, will have a little bit of understanding what it means to touch the spiritual order, with the first of four spiritual orders. And that is, you go in for training, you go in for studying. It's called swadhyaya. You spend time, you memorize verses, you absorb the philosophy, you take to the practice of menial services. It's the most modest position to take. And there is celibacy that is applied. There's no fooling around. You know, you stay with one gender, they're all your friends, and you learn and you grow together. It's the true bachelor's degree, you know. And so that's there. Then most people end up being grihastas, but we call it grihasta ashram. That means that they live a spiritual life, even though husband and wife will have intimacy for the purpose of having children, and also the purpose of being bonded together. So that happens for a period from age 25 to 50, 60. Then some people end up going to the next stage of the spiritual orders called vanaprastha. Vana means spend some time in the forest. I don't see too many people doing that. People are rather, let's say, wimpish these days. There's just too many bugs out there in the forest. And poisonous snakes. And in the case of Florida, well, you've got these things called alligators, you know. But generally in this phase, people are more elderly and they spend time traveling to tirthas, holy places. They may spend a little time apart from each other. They do a lot of exclusive service together. This is a group that we have not tapped into very much in our society, but it's a very, people in that particular bracket can offer valuable services. They have so much experience, okay? And they're working their way towards the fourth one, perhaps. Actually, we see very few people go to the fourth order, which is the Sanyas Order. And I guess you can call it the odd fellows, group. These fellows are very odd. There's very few and far between that take this role. Not necessarily for women, because men can roam around quite freely in solitude and not be bothered. Not advised for a woman, but a woman can still have the sannyas attitude. After all, it's the consciousness that we're going for. It's not the color of your clothes. It's not saffron versus white or green or whatever the latest fashion is for the grastas. It's really more state of mind. So all men and women can achieve this later stage of renunciation. As is indicated by Krishna, Manhi Parata Vipasvitya, Yepi Syu, Papionia, Striya Vaishis Tatashudras, Tepi Andi Parangati. Now the social orders are Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras. We can spend months on this topic here alone. A Brahman is someone who's priestly. A Brahman is someone who is a blesser. A Brahman is someone who has large vision, great vision, broad vision, can see the big picture. A Brahman is somebody who is there to offer charity to people and also to receive charity. Many qualifications. They are the priests in society. And then you also have the Kshatriyas. They take advice from the Brahmins. The Kshatriyas are the ones that are people movers. They manage. They're big proprietors. They own. And they also enforce the law of Dharma. Somebody has to come around and let's say enforce the rules. I know there's a group of people out there that say, we don't need the police, let's stop funding the police force. But can you imagine one day what would happen? It would be mayhem. It's really, we need these people. Then we have the Vaishyas, who are like small kings. They have responsibility for a smaller group of people. They're after the commerce. They involve themselves in commerce and also land protection, animal protection, protecting the fields so that they're not depleted of nutrients and good energy, that there's good vegetables that can go on the table, good products, good produce. This is the job of the Vaishyas. They're not just there to earn money. And then there's the Shudras, which is the largest category of people, and they support everybody. They are the supporters. And if they are dharmic, they have really good work ethics, and they're highly appreciated. So everyone is supposed to fit into one of these categories. And by your own nature, by your guna and karma. We've talked about that before. Guna, karma, vibhagasya. Guna means, what is your nature? In terms of, are you a reserved kind of person? Or are you outgoing, etc. And karma means your behavior. How do you behave? What are your actions? How do you respond to things when they come? Krishna says, according to your guna and karma, you will be fit into one of these neat little boxes. And you are expected to work in that category and to contribute to society. Sometimes we hear of people who work a little bit out of the box. And we can think of people like Drona and also Parashuram. These were people that stepped out of their, let's say, their varnas to do other services. But it's rare. So don't try to do the extraordinary, try to be more ordinary. Okay, now, Krishna's indicating that everyone should be very active in the Varna and Ashram system. And then he says, I'm aloof. I'm unchangeable. I don't get involved. I don't work like other people do. But the fact that he has created this for us indicates that he is a worker. So going along with our theme again, this is what's Krishna's purpose? And this is one of them. He creates those 4 social and order systems. Okay. And then I'm sitting right here in the room where you can see me. And in 1976, a reporter from the Toronto Star came by, and her name was Kathy Carr, Kerr. And she was saying that she was asking Prabhupada about the caste system. And then Prabhupada challenged her. He said, what do you mean caste system? Krishna does not speak of caste system. He talks about the 4 social and spiritual orders. Now the caste system has a real bad rap, has very negative connotations. And we see that there's been exploitation that people have experienced with that system in India. The same way that Europeans have had a caste system for some hundreds of years, with the monarchy, and of course the church above them, and the monarchy. Sometimes the monarchy was above the church, and then the commoners, what we sometimes call the peasants, they were taken advantage of. So whether it's a Eastern or Western experience historically, there's been exploitation. As long as you look down at someone and don't look laterally, then there will be problems. We have to appreciate everybody's service. And Prabhupada made many statements like that. He said, the person who cleans the washroom or cleans the pots is as good as the pujari, because it's all service to Krishna. Sometimes it's better to take the humble position. It is. If you can avoid being in a situation where your nose is constantly in the air, then you're better off. You're better off. Does anybody have any questions about this? It's true that in time, the Varnashram system became perverted, but it's up to devotees like us to bring it back on track and give it the honor and glory that it deserves. And that's why Prabhupada wanted to spend time in Gita Nagari to help exercise and implement the Varna and Ashram system.
Maharaj, I have a question.
Yes.
I know a lot of people, when they use the Varna Ashram terminology, they say, oh, you are a Shudra. It's like a negative connotation right there, like putting somebody down.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is something, how do we get around that one?
That is very detrimental. We should never put anybody down. That is not spiritual vision. That is material calculation. And as long as you're a materialistic thinker, then you are lower than the lowest. We have to have the vision. Vidya Vinaya Sampane, Brahmane Gavahastini, Shuni Chaiva, Shwabhakecha, Pandita Samadarshina. that means that you see the Brahmin, the man who eats animals, the dog, the cow, the elephant, all to be on the same level, because they're all spiritual and they're all acting out. Each and every one of them are acting out their destiny. You know? So it's not for us to judge on those terms. We should judge. See, somebody who's doing shooter work, they might have a proper attitude, whereas a person who's like a Brahminical person may have a condescending spirit, and that is very unfavorable for making spiritual advancement. Yeah. So yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem. People do it all the time. People do it. Men do it to women. Women do it to men. People do it racially. You know, but we always have to look at things complementary. You know, everyone is a valuable asset. No one is a liability. We're only a liability when we don't follow Dharma and we don't have any rules and regulations in our life. When we don't have any manners, right? So we have to learn to RESPECT everybody. Everybody.
So then how do you deal with people who eat animals? How do you put them on an equal plane, or how do you do that?
No, what you do, you see, equal plane, your view is that these are people that have a chance. These are people who have, they can have an opportunity, and I should be the opportunist. I don't mean that in a negative sense. I mean, just here's a person that has a chance to take some of the samosas that Vaishnavi just cooked. Here's a person who has a chance to eat some prasadam. You know, because of their habit or their negative ways, opportunity. That's the way you should see it. Right? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's program, everybody, anyone and everyone should become a recipient of this love of God. So we have an obligation to do and to think as he did. Yeah. So that's our responsibility. Yet they have a chance. Well, look at all the people that are perhaps like vegetarian or vegans, and they have sometimes very terrible attitudes, very judgmental. Just keep one thing in mind. If you're judgmental, you're mental. It's right there in the word. You're mental. Don't be a judge when you're not God. Okay, shall we move along?
Yeah,
Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
On this. So I understand we should not be judgmental, but at the same time, how do we apply Rupa Goswami's verse, Krishneti asya giritam manasedriyayita?
Well, you'll have to translate that for everybody.
Someone who is chanting the holy names, we should offer respects in our mind to somebody who had taken Diksha, initiation. We should actually offer dandavats, and then someone who is not envious, those people we have to go and try to get their sangha, Ipsita Sangha, we have to get their association somehow or other.
Right.
So
let's look at a verse from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Trinada Visvanichina, etc. He's saying, be ready to offer all respects to others. Others, everybody. Don't leave anybody out. Respect all. You know, like you can actually really appreciate like a shooter's work. Maybe they're digging a ditch. Maybe they're building a bridge, you know, but it's to the society's benefit. And we should appreciate the sweat of their brow. You know, we should like respect them like anything instead of having an attitude towards them. You know, we should be moved. We should be humbled that they're working so hard for my benefit and the benefit of others. Yeah, I cannot boast that I'm any kind of special saint of any imagination. I remember I was walking on one trail. It was one of those rails to trails where once there was a train that went through, and I could see by what was on both sides of my trail. It was like swamp. So 120 years ago or more, some guys went in there. They got paid maybe $1 a day, and they just, sacrificed everything so that I could now enjoy. I remember I was in tears just thinking about that once. You know, that some guys gave their lives. There were some Chinese workers, and when they did the CP Railway in Canada, and for every mile strip that was made, 3 or 5 people died, just falling down, or just dying from fatigue, or from the cold. You know, that's the way it was. You know, for every mile, 3 to 5 people died while they were constructing that railway. So, you know, we really have to appreciate what people have done for us now. You have to think big, look into the past, and not just see what's there now. You know? You have to look at all those guys that build the high rises, you know, so that people can live comfortably, and the subways and all, and boats and yachts and this and that. We never think about those things, do we? All right, so at least people are doing something, and they're working, and they're showing they're responsible. So at all costs, we must show respect. Otherwise, what kind of a Vaishnava are we? Might as well pack it in and go back to Kumbhipaka, where we deserve to be. What's Kumbhipaka? Form of hell. Okay, so we are at 14 now. Okay, 4:14. Is there anybody else new who hasn't had a chance?
Mandala, go.
Okay, it's not there.
There we go.
No.
Can you hear me? Sorry, it wasn't allowing me to unmute. Translation: there is no work that affects me, nor do I aspire for the fruits of action. One who understands this truth about me also does not become entangled in the fruitive reactions of work.
Another nice verse that qualifies Krishna to express that he's aloof. If you can appreciate that he's aloof, then you will become aloof. That's what he's saying. Let's go to 15 then.
Rain.
Okay, anybody else there?
Yeah.
Okay.
All the liberated souls in ancient times acted with this understanding of my transcendental nature. Therefore, you should perform your duty following in their footsteps.
Okay, here's another verse that very well expresses that many people in the past have become purified by knowledge of me. So liberated souls, just look at this here, look at this verse prescribed. Past authorities, Purabai, they are liberated. Mumukshubi, they have appreciated this quality of Krishna, his aloofness. So follow in their footsteps. Do as they have done. Do as the ancients have done. Okay. Okay, so that brings us to the point from verse 4 to 15 of Krishna's purpose. Now we're going into what is karma, the workings of karma. Does anybody have any questions on this segment at all? We got 10 minutes. Anybody?
Sankalpa has a question. Go ahead, Sankalpa Mataji.
Okay. Maharaj, just going a little bit back, you were talking about not judging anybody. There is a purport of Prabhupada where he says, the famous one, that women are less intelligent on the level of Shudras. So it
Right.
sounds, devotees and non-devotees have always had problems with this, Shudras and women that,
Right.
it sounds like they're judged. So maybe
Yeah.
you can elaborate.
Yeah, that is in the report. It's not what Krishna says. Yeah, I had a problem with that when I first read the Bhagavad Gita, and I still have a problem with it. And then, what I would like to say is that Srila Prabhupada, you read all the books and you'll see, wow, Prabhupada's actually got a very balanced view on things here. Like, in some reports, he's talking about women are more involved than their counterparts in most places in the world. Even Krishna says that, fine speech and all these other qualities are feminine traits. So if you look at the whole gamut of what is there, it comes out quite balanced. But when we hear that particular line from chapter 1, purport in the Bhagavad Gita, that can throw you off a little bit about what's said about women. There's no explanation about it. There's no great, amazing, there's no elaboration. So I just accepted that if you look at everything that's there in the Shastras, that it comes out quite even and balanced. So it may not be a good idea to just take that verse and isolate it, because that certainly wasn't Prabhupada's mood and his spirit. He appreciated everybody's contribution, the men and the women. And I know it's hard because it's there, it's in black and white print. So it's a bit hard to take, but again, if somebody can get past that verse and go through all the publications that we have, you'll find that, it does kind of even out in the end, so you can be satisfied. But some people, readers, they may not want to go past that statement, so that makes it a little hard. So then I would say, in such cases, it's our duty then to explain Prabhupada's position, which was balanced. So let's not isolate or a line like that, and that's not our religion. Our religion is not women are less intelligent. Our religion is to love Krishna. And Krishna is both mother and father, by the way. But I'm not saying he's bisexual. So those are just some remarks in that regard. Would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, I personally, I have also thought there's so many places where Prabhupada says, speaks about the feminine and the masculine qualities and how they are good for something, in all different areas of life. We need certain qualities. And so, yeah, it is ultimately balanced out. And in our practical life, we can see that everybody can contribute, whether you're a woman or Shudra or Brahmana, and as you said before, if we have the right attitude, it doesn't matter what kind of activity we do. Or if we are proud to be of Brahminical nature, so that can be a big obstacle also. But I'm just thinking if somebody reads the lines, and yeah, if there was a footnote or so. Anyway,
Yes, you're talking
you
about a
know,
footnote.
it can be
Yes.
difficult to go past that.
Well, it's a little bit our Bhaktivedanta Book Trust people who might have to take this to heart and do a little bit of an explanation. Footnoting perhaps might be helpful. I support that idea as well, just to make it clear so people can go on and study more. We know that Prabhupada was also speaking of some relative truths, and he spoke a lot about absolute truths. I would say that's probably relative truth. I mean, a woman excels in many areas where men are left behind, and then vice versa. It's quite a beautiful complementary situation. But that's not what people are reading. So that's where it does become a little bit of a challenge for us. So I think that if you personally believe that in the balanced approach, which is what I believe Krishna is, that's his position, then we can offer that purport to someone that you're mentoring or taking them through. I would say that help them to understand the situation as best as you can. Prabhupada doesn't just leave it like that. That's the final statement. It's a pat answer, but rather he does go into further explanation. He talks about Draupadi being a woman, being soft-hearted. She didn't want to see, that Ashwatthama's mother would be in grief. So she said, let him go, even though he was the murderer of her children. That's how kind-hearted, women can be. So I think it's always a good practice as devotees to highlight the qualities of saintliness.
One question on that topic. During Prabhupada's time, when he made that statement, did anybody go more into discussion about that with Prabhupada? Do you know that if any of the people?
I haven't heard, but when Prabhupada did come, at that time, there might have been somewhat of an attitude like that, felt by, his students. I would say, for myself personally, I had a little hard time with it. Prabhupada coming from the Victorian times, from India, imperialistic India, that that kind of an attitude would probably prevail. And it's not. It's a little bit, unnerving. And just like now, if you're in a male body, women will attack you all the time for everything that you do wrong. And it doesn't make us guys feel very good either. So I think as a general practice, we know how Prabhupada was. He was so affectionate to the ladies. I think that he may have said one thing. He certainly didn't, the way he put into practice his own attitude and let's say his service attitude, express his service attitude towards both men and women. It was very fair, he was very kind and loving, that we can say. Yeah, so what to do about the publications? Let's in the hands of the guys who are in charge. And I think what Krishna has to say in the Gita about men and women, I think is very balanced also. I think best we can do is try to point that out to people who are reading. So Sankalpa, I don't know what else I can say on the matter.
That's fine, Maharaj. Very helpful. Yeah, it's good to have some points ready because every now and then you come
Yeah.
across somebody,
Yeah, it pops
you know,
up.
who reads
Yeah.
Bhagavad Gita for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that women will struggle with, and most men also, you know. Most men will struggle with that particular sentence also. So therefore, it's good for us to go on pause, think this through, hear what other, seasoned devotees have to say on the subject, and then I think it's more digestible then for us to accept. At least if we were to give a presentation on the Bhagavad Gita ourselves, teach a lesson, I think we should make it very clear to everybody that everyone is wanted, respected, and desired, and we all have equal opportunities. I think that's how we can respond.
Maharaj, I read somewhere that Prabhupada had this psychology professor while he was going. That
Yes,
really
there's something about the
at this
safety.
mentioned that about the size of women and men's brain, and that
Yeah,
into Prabhupada's consciousness probably. I think he was probably referring to that. Probably was the
yes, most likely. That's why I mentioned sort of like maybe it's a relative truth. So like 36 ounces versus 64, something like that. Yeah, those kind of, that mention was presented in Chicago, 1976, I believe. That's when that little bit of controversy came about. But that's all relative to the size of the body. Somebody might have a smaller brain, but it might still be more active than a big brain that's dead. You have a bigger brain if you have a bigger body, but maybe it might be less active. It's something to debate about.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Well, what really is important in the end, however, is that how big is your bhakti? How big is
Hare
your
Krishna
devotion?
Maharaj.
Yes.
Just on that note, right in the purport, the very first sentence, Srila Prabhupada says, on the material platform, there may be differences, but on the spiritual platform, this consideration doesn't actually take place. And then in the 10th chapter, Krishna actually defines, qualities of a woman, and it's like fine speech, intelligence,
Yes.
many of these really great qualities actually that kind of coincide with, I guess, this, or it's an opposite statement as well. So I guess if you're thinking on the material platform, there might be a suggestion. I remember hearing Mahatma Prabhu say also a factor in that may just be the emotional intelligence of a woman, which they're supposed to be protected in a way so that some men, especially in this day and age, could misuse their
Position.
Yeah, their positions by swaying a woman by saying, "Oh, I love you so much. This is, you're my heart and soul," but really they just have ill intentions. So, kind of the intelligence in that factor, may have played a role.
Yes, I think that still some people will raise an objection if we say that on the material platform it might be the case that women are less intelligent, but on the spiritual platform we're all the same. Some people might still have an objection to that. But certainly, when it comes to male and female, our brains do generally operate a little differently. We should complement each other for sure. We say men don't get as emotional, but they do get more angry easily. And they get more physical. So it can be argued. Anyways, it's good when they work together, with each other and help each other's partners in life. Okay, anyways, that's a big topic, and well, let us just finish at that point. We'll reconvene next week then, and we'll talk about karma. Okay, we'll go deeper into karma. I hope everybody's satisfied with what we discussed today, and I hope we learned something. I always do when we discuss.
Anyone else has any questions? You can unmute yourself right now.
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
This is from Portugal. Vijaya Krishna Das. Maharaj, can you hear me?
I certainly can, loud and clear.
Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj, my question is related to the following verse that I find in the chapter 9, which title is The Most Confidential Knowledge. And somehow I feel that this verse is in harmony with the subject of your class. So it is the text 25, and it goes like this. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to the ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. And those who worship me will live with me. So Maharaj, if I may, my question is, what is the meaning of Krishna saying at the very end of this verse, will live with me? In practical terms, what is the meaning of this?
In practical terms?
Yes. What is the practical aspect of this in terms of meaning?
Well, depends what you mean by practical, but in this particular shloka, we're jumping ahead a few chapters, and Krishna is saying everyone will enjoy their destiny based on the direction that they've been going in. If you give your attention to devatas, demigods, that's where you go. If you give your attention to spirits, that's where you go, but et cetera. But if you worship me, you'll come to me. That means you go to Krishna's place, Krishna's planet, Goloka, or a place where Krishna is the center of life. That is the culture. Krishna is the focal point. So it just means usually people gravitate to wherever they put their attention, love. That's what the verse more or less supports.
And Maharaj, is it possible for me to live with Krishna before I die? Before I abandon this material body?
Yes, it's possible for Krishna. You just have to accept him in your heart. He's already there. You just have to accept that he's there. And then the way to really prove that you love Krishna is to serve the other devotees. Be nice to all the other devotees.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
We can get more involved in that, that shloka, and we'll get there. But thank you, everybody. Thanks for the questions.
Maharaj, can I make you a question?
Sure.
Hare Krishna, how are you? My obeisance is all glories to Srila Prabhupada. We always talk about bhakti, and we use that word so cheap.
Yes.
That I mean is that we most at least me, I practice Vaidhi Bhakti because I don't have some spontaneous attraction for the devotional service. So
right.
If I do my duty without develop the Raganuga, I can in this lifetime attain the Goloka Vrindavan above?
Yes, it is possible, but you have to take it all step by step. So now you're doing your duty, like you're being a good father. That's very obvious. You're being a good daddy. And that's where it begins, by dealing with practical matters and giving the love, the attention that's needed. So like Prabhupada said to one of his devotees, female, students, he said, your children are your babies are your deities. So you have to totally honor them and respect them. And then eventually, you'll be able to, and of course you do a lot of things out of love, isn't it? There's a need out of love. When the child cries, you have to run immediately and take care of the situation. So it all starts, that's why it's good to be a grihastha, unless if you're going to be one of those, you learn how to love, you learn how to sacrifice. It's where it all begins. It's at that point, when you agree to be with someone, says, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to look after you. And there's some mutual understanding. At that point, you're starting to grow. But prior to that, it's pretty much all about me, what I want. Right. So that's the beauty of having babies. And that or taking care of people in general. That's the closest we're going to get to loving Krishna. By loving our children, taking care of them, protecting them.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
No problem. Jai, thank you. Hare Krishna. We're going to have to go now. See you next week. Honorable.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Wonderful class, wonderful session, so sweet.
You were all wonderful.
Thank you all. We all will see you again next week, the same link, same time.
Same time. What is the time for you for this class? I'm in Portugal. What is the time for you?
Here it starts at 5 Eastern time.
No, what is the time for the beginning of this class next week?
5 o'clock. 5 o'clock every Thursday.
Thank you very much. I'll be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining. You are very, very popular because